Welcome, everyone. On behalf of BioIT World's Global Web Symposia Series and our sponsor for today, MarkLogic, I'd like to welcome you to the Information Management Platform of the Future. My name is Elizabeth Lamb, and I'll be the Technical Director for today's event. I'd like to introduce the moderator for today's event, Nicholas J. Diamond, JD, MBE, leads MarkLogic's market strategy and messaging in the healthcare and life sciences sectors. Before joining MarkLogic, he held various consulting roles where he supported the federal government with implementation of healthcare reform. Nick also maintains an active academic portfolio, having been published on various healthcare topics, taught at the university level, given numerous lectures to academic and professional audiences, and appeared on national news programs as an expert in public health law. He holds degrees from Georgetown, Charleston Law, and the University of Pennsylvania. And with that, I will pass the presenter ball over to you, Nick. Welcome.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm your moderator, Nick Diamond. I'm joined today by Dr. David Nace from MarkLogic and Ann Lapkin from SmartLogic to help give you an idea of their backgrounds. Dr. Nace is MarkLogic's Chief Medical Officer. He sets MarkLogic's clinical strategy and works closely with client-facing sales, product, and marketing teams to continuously improve MarkLogic's healthcare and life sciences solutions and services. Before joining MarkLogic, Dr. Nace served as Vice President of Clinical Development for the McKesson Corporation for over a decade. He's also served as a Senior Vice President and Corporate Medical Director at United Health Group, Vice President and Chief Medical Officer at Aetna Incorporated, and he's held medical directorships in a variety of academic and community-based healthcare organizations. He received his MD from the University of Pittsburgh and is board certified in psychiatry. And Ann Lampkin, Senior Vice President for Global Strategy at SmartLogic, has 30 years of experience working with global organizations to extract value from their information. Her deep understanding of enterprise information issues help her to guide SmartLogic's product and communication strategies. Ann spent 10 years as a research vice president at Gartner, where she managed the information management research agenda and was responsible for all Gartner research on big data, information management and governance, information infrastructure, data quality, and data integration. She studied at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and speaks fluent Hebrew and English and enough French to order dinner and keep up with the news. Today we'll be exploring how the combination of MarkLogic and SmartLogic Semaphore creates the information platform of the future, and how these complementary technologies are generating business value in the life sciences sector. At this point, Dr. Nace, I'd like to pass it over to you to give us an overview of today's discussion.
Well, thank you, Nick. I'm very pleased to be here, and welcome to all of you who have attended this webinar. We're thrilled, both at MarkLogic and SmartLogic, to be here and have this discussion with you today. So as you all know, when we talk about information challenges in life science, that there's been a data deluge in healthcare, right? You know, the last 5 years alone have seen more scientific data created than in the entirety of human history. It's amazing. And life sciences data in particular has been increasing not only in volume, but also in complexity and variety, and it's been doing so at greater and greater speed. So all of that results in pain points, right, that we all experience. The data is very difficult to find, difficult to acquire, difficult to use, difficult to relate. The source of truth is never clear. Trying to integrate the data, doing data integration, comparison, and doing analysis is very difficult because the data arrives in different formats, using different terminologies, different languages from varying sources, and the impact on our productivity and the competitiveness of our business is quite significant. So the challenge, just to summarize in life sciences, is to be able to leverage and link structured and unstructured data, all types of data, in order to drive business goals, regardless of where that data comes from. And if you could do this, it would allow you to increase your formulary acceptance and reimbursement much better, develop a deeper understanding of your market, choose more efficiently and effectively between competing compounds in your pipeline, make more informed pricing decisions, achieve greater product differentiation, and really demonstrate your product's value in the marketplace. In reality, what most of us face is that integrating structured and unstructured data in the relational model with relational databases is very difficult and very expensive and ends up hindering content enrichment. You know, the relational database was a major breakthrough back in the early 80s. And although it freed the data up from the application in the mainframe of its predecessor, it's not built for today's data challenges in life sciences, which is so rapidly changing. You know, as illustrated in this picture here, today about 50 to 80% of data scientists and IT staff time is spent collecting, preparing, and moving data around using expensive ETL, extract, transform, and load processes. And every time the data changes, the application requirements change, the questions that you want to ask change, it requires associated mapping and more ETL work, requiring time and money. This results in a very brittle data architecture, incredible complexity, and high cost, and data silos where one cannot seem to find, use, or relate the data and information they need when they need it, and cannot deal effectively with the continued onslaught of new data types, new questions, and new business requirements. So, in the MarkLogic SmartLogic partnership, the MarkLogic database is at its core a non-relational or NoSQL database, which is characterized by a number of key features that are differentiating in the marketplace. Number one, it has a very flexible data model. Data is ingested as it exists, as is, without any ETL being required at all. One can bring the data in regardless of the type, structured, heterogeneously structured, semi-structured, or unstructured, and store it along with its associated metadata, allowing you to adapt to varying and changing data structures, types, and formats as they arrive. Number two, it has an Ask Anything universal index, which allows it to have built-in search capabilities immediately upon ingestion of the data. Everything is indexed immediately upon coming into the MarkLogic database. This happens in real time, lightning fast, and allows you to search and query endlessly from the arrival of the data into the database across the data types, whether it's JSON, XML, text, metadata, geospatial, semantic triples. All of this occurs as the data comes in and is stored all in one integrated database. Everything is in one place. All the data, all the associated metadata, the geospatial, the semantic triples, bitemporal features, and other features that are needed to be there in order to serve you with your application development needs. The application services are built in server-side for you to use and apply to your agile development and develop applications as you need them, and to learn new applications that need to be built as new data arrives. And third, and most importantly, the MarkLogic platform is enterprise-ready, 100% ACID compliant with reliable data and transactions. You know, MarkLogic's been around for a while. It's mature. It's got 14 years experience in development, and it's used by many Fortune 500 companies in order to run their business line. MarkLogic stands alone as the leading non-relational NoSQL database with true enterprise features, along with government-grade security and common criteria certification. We've got plenty of examples where we can handle massive scale, and a great example is healthcare.gov, where MarkLogic serves as the data services hub and the database for the health insurance marketplace. And our experience there is we can handle 6,000 transactions per second and have had up to 300,000 concurrent users at any one time and have never lost a piece of data. So the experience and the ability to have those enterprise features is quite differentiating in the marketplace and allows you to have a trusted enterprise-grade solution at your fingertips. While having all the data, search capabilities, and application development capabilities all in one place is great, but being able to relate your data is critical in a life sciences environment. The value for life sciences really comes together in the SmartLogic MarkLogic partnership. And here, SmartLogic provides the semantic enrichment and allows you to immediately relate your data across various data types, languages, and formats without really having to do any work right out of the box. The SmartLogic Semaphore and MarkLogic partnership, the platform, the integrated platform, gives you the flexibility of an enterprise-class schema-agnostic data store with sophisticated semantic enrichment and comprehensive metadata all in one place. Well, this is critical for today's life sciences objectives, including various use cases that you're all familiar with struggling to deal with, such as compound identification, clinical trial management, product knowledge capture, regulatory compliance, meeting the new IDMP standards, real-world evidence, adverse events reporting, competitive intelligence, and so on and so forth. Now, the challenge in life sciences really is, as a result, that it's a semantic problem. I mean, up to 70% of the information that you currently experience and have access to is unstructured and semi-structured and can't be handled by a relational approach. The vocabularies change as the product progresses through the life cycle of data management, and the information needs to be harmonized, not only within but across enterprise boundaries. Standard vocabularies such as MESH, UMLS, MEDRA, SNOMED all need to be used and related and leveraged to look across your data as if it were all one database. So as depicted in the picture here, where the data is and where the data go needs to be tied together. And the metadata obviously describes the location or the provenance of the data. Ontologies can be leveraged to describe and organize an atlas of data and information in an organization, as well as the vocabulary that's used. And the semantic integration of the data allows all available sources to act meaningfully as if it were all just one global interoperable database. So this really results in what we like to think about as the information platform in the future, something to meet all your needs going forward. Again, the MarkLogic database at its core really provides the immediate data ingestion with the ability to search and audit and manage your data regardless of the type of data as it comes in. Looking at the bottom left, you can see you can bring in various sources from internal data, CROs, third-party organizations, and then SmartLogic allows you to bring in external vocabularies, start leveraging its semantic technology and vocabulary management to meet your clinical, regulatory, safety, or manufacturing needs. And all of this data can be synthesized together and be used for a whole variety of use cases, as I mentioned. This is all provided in one integrated platform, and everything is in one place. Search, query, semantic integration, application development services. It can be used for a wide variety of use cases, which we'd like to go into now. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Ann Lepkin, and she'll walk through some of these use cases and how this platform can be leveraged.
Thank you, David, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We have quite a bit of experience in the MarkLogic, SmartLogic partnership. As a matter of fact, there have been customers that have told us that we should just call the whole thing SmartLogic and get it done with. But because MarkLogic, SmartLogic is kind of a mouthful, isn't it? But we'd like to share some of those use cases with you today. And one of the ones that we find very frequently is real-world evidence. Real-world evidence requires you to bring data together from a variety of different sources. Some of them are internal to your organization, some of them are external. Claims information, test results, data from pharmacies, data from clinical research, consumer data, social media, and so on and so forth, all of which use different vocabularies and have to be harmonized into a consistent semantic framework so that the relationships and the causes and effects can be analyzed so that you can actually prove that your compounds and your products are actually performing at the level of efficacy and cost effectiveness that is required. Real-world evidence has been characterized as the big data problem of life sciences because it requires large volumes, a large variety, and high velocity of information. The MarkLogic database capabilities and SmartLogic's ability to relate all of those different vocabularies and whatnot together is what provides you with a platform for actually doing real-world evidence studies effectively. Another case study or another use case that we very, very frequently see is regulatory compliance. And we've chosen IDMP as an example here, though of course it's not the only one. IDMP requires reporting of identification of medicinal products in a very structured, very standard format with a set of structured and controlled vocabularies, and being able to model not only the IDMP data model, but also your documents and your internal vocabularies and relate those things to one another is what allows us to extract field-level data from semi-structured and unstructured information assets, which our customers are telling us are anywhere between 50 to 70% of the information that they need for IDMP reporting in a cost-effective and efficient way. Customers are struggling with this problem now because IDMP, while it's been pushed off a couple of times, is looming on the horizon. And everybody understands that being able to get hold of this information and keep it current and correct is either a huge manual effort or something where the information platform of the future can be leveraged not only for IDMP as an outcome, but for better information management as a goal. Another use case that we frequently see is enhanced data discovery. Many organizations have a variety of internal and external information sources that they want to be able to mine to find all there is to know about a particular concept of interest. Being able to mark up all of the content in all these various repositories with complete, consistent, and accurate metadata is critical to being able to find all of the information that you want. Now, you can, in theory, control the vocabularies and the metadata in your internal systems, even though we know that doesn't really work very well because you can't depend on human beings to tag their content properly. And different systems developed at different times have different sets and semantics that they use, but you have no control whatsoever over the vocabularies that are used by external data sources. So being able to harmonize those vocabularies across all the data sources, internal and external, and return all the information that you need about a concept of interest is very, very important to making the research process more effective. What we've also found is that some customers are actually using this to mine archived research projects for clues that may inform their current research. Adverse event reporting is a really good example. Adverse event reports, we all know what they are. Our clients are telling us that the volumes are growing by upwards of 20% year on year, and that their only option without taking this new approach to information management is to throw more bodies at the problem. That's a problem because, number one, anytime you have humans involved in a lot of manual effort, particularly if it's repetitive and boring, you tend to get a lot of errors. But being able to use the combination of MarkLogic and SmartLogic to actually extract the relevant facts, relationships, and entities from the adverse event reports, irrespective of how they come in what language they come in what vocabularies they come in, is critically important. But that's only part of the issue. The other part is that organizations tend to take adverse events and research them and treat them through statistical analysis. And we all know that the noise to signal ratio on statistical analysis is actually very high. By extracting the facts, the relationships, and the entities and putting them into graph database, into new technology, you can actually use big data and analysis techniques to discover the relationships and patterns so that you end up reporting the things that you should and don't end up reporting the things that you shouldn't. Clinical trial management is another big area. Being able to evaluate the fitness of CROs for new clinical trials based on the expertise that they demonstrated and results that they showed in previous clinical trials, being able to fingerprint the documents so that you ensure that you distribute the right documents to the right organizations and to the right partners, being able to identify experts and skills, select patients and do patient onboarding. And one of the things that didn't make it onto this slide but was actually brought up by one of our clients earlier this week was the ability to detect and extract deviations from procedure in clinical trial reports is a critical and almost entirely manual component right now. So being able to extract that information, extract the relevant information, and understand where there are issues in the implementation of a particular clinical trial is actually extremely important and something that at least 2 of our clients have discovered as a new use case in the last couple of weeks. And then, of course, there's the mundane business of manufacturing and distributing drugs. We can't all be in research and development, which is, the exciting place where breakthroughs happen. But as you go through the process of commercializing a compound, going through the regulatory approval process, and dealing with the manufacture of a drug in supply, which may last for between 5 to 50 years, there's a tremendous amount of information that is created during this process. And the people in commercialization use different vocabularies from the people who are going through the regulatory approvals process. And in each different manufacturing facility, the vocabularies may be somewhat different. So being able to bring all of that information together in a single product body of knowledge actually allows you to, number one, not rework information assets because they couldn't be found. Number 2, stop the leakage of information from the process because you're not keeping things in different repositories with different semantic overlays. And being able to govern the information that's created in a way that allows the business to be more efficient, more agile, and more successful. And lastly, competitive intelligence. Being able to mine the media for evolution in treatments, for other competing research, for announcements. Each and every one of those organizations use different disease vocabularies in order to be able to present the right information to the right researchers at the right time. In order for them to use it in their research, you need to be able to harmonize all of that information. You don't need to make it semantically consistent, but you need to provide a semantically consistent overlay that will present whatever information is needed, irrespective of where it came from, what vocabularies were used, and so on. So in summary, the MarkLogic and SmartLogic partnership is a fully integrated solution. Our companies have worked very, very hard to make our products work together seamlessly, because we see such a tremendous need in the marketplace for an enterprise-class, active compliant, schemaless database and a semantic platform which is also enterprise-class, which can support the relationships between the information that life sciences companies need. You can store and query all of your data sources from a unified information store. It's semantically enriched. It's scalable, it's effective, it's cost-effective, and it's flexible because you don't have to worry about source data structure changes and you don't have to worry about vocabulary changes. And you can combine operational functionality and analytical functionality very, very easily in the same platform. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Nick to take questions.
Thanks, Ann, and thanks, Dr. Nace, as well. At this point, we have time for audience questions. And as Elizabeth mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, you can type your questions into that chat box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And you'll also notice on the screen we've provided our contact information if you all want to reach out at any point after this webinar with further questions or just to learn a bit more about the integrated platform. Please don't hesitate to send us an email. So the first question we have deals with data sources. And David and Ann, this question I think goes to both of you. This individual asks, what data sources have you integrated together for life sciences customers?
So this is David. I'll start, and then I'll turn it over to Ann. So the beauty of the MarkLogic database is it doesn't matter what form the data is in. We can quickly ingest it into the database. We, as I mentioned, the search, we can immediately index the data as soon as it arrives down to the granular level, regardless of form, and store the data as is. and so it can be searched and used regularly. Anne, would you like to speak to some of the data sources we've had in the life science arena?
Oh, God, everything from Document and eDocs, I think it's called, and SharePoint to SAP, structured data sources. I mean, the list is almost endless. And there are really two things. Number one, you can integrate data from anywhere because you don't have to worry about the schema. You can leverage external vocabularies like Mesh, Medra, SNOMED, and so on, so that you're linking those vocabularies into your model. And that gives you really the ability to accommodate almost anything.
Yeah, and you've really hit that nail on the head. Most organizations have multiple data silos. They have different departments that have developed databases on their own for each department's use. And now, in the contemporary environment we experience today, we want to be able to look across that data, combine it, relate it, as you pointed out, Ann. Each of those databases in a relational world have a different schema, and you cannot look across the data. You can't combine it from one schema to the next without doing the associated ETL work. So the one beauty, I think, in answer to the questioner, is that one can use as a data source any database that exists within your organization and be able to pull that data in and be able to search it and understand the data right away, and then begin to be able to use it as you need it for these various use cases. But the second thing, and the beauty of this is it's not only the structured data. About 30% of the data that exists today for most people is structured and can be fit into a relational database. The majority of data is unstructured, whether it's a PDF or a text document or any other source. Social media is a source, and you can't put it into a relational database unless you strip out various components and fit it into rows and columns that exist in a relational database. So that's been relatively inaccessible, the unstructured data that an organization might have access to. And now one can bring that in, store it natively in the database, and be able to search it, query, and use it as is.
I think one of the... I'm sorry, go ahead, David.
No, I was going to say, thirdly, is you have this whole world of external data sources, right? So we threw a lot of them on the map for the picture of the information platform in the future, where you might have various CROs or vendors, or the whole World Wide Web has access to data such as triple stores that are available in the external environment that are somewhat standardized to pretty much anything you can access on the web. So external data can also be used from a whole plethora of sources to be able to bring into the database. So it's internal, structured from various databases, unstructured data that you currently can't get into a relational database, and external sources, really almost ad lib, that you want to bring into the database. And again, all in one database that you can then semantically relate and be able to look across as if it were one giant integrated database. Anne?
Yeah, I think the other thing to say about that is the question that we always ask is, how do you ask a PDF a question? Okay? If you're a human being, you open the PDF, you read it, you decide what it's about, and then you act on it. But if you want a PDF to tell you what it's about, what facts it contains, what information is locked up inside of it, you can't do that without having a human open it, read it, and then make a determination about what to do next. The beauty of this is that by ensuring that you have very complete, consistent, and precise descriptions of all the things that PDF is about, or all the things that external research article is about, and so on and so forth, then you actually have the ability to use all of that information. Now, can you store a PDF in a relational database? Sure you can. You can store it as a blob, but it's just sitting there, and you can't do anything with it without having a human open it up.
And that's an excellent point. And I'll let the audience know that we can actually see some of the questions that are coming in the chat box. One of the questions that just came in was, can you accommodate handwritten documents? So just like the PDF example Ann just provided, if we have a written document, then we can find a way to a text-written document. We can find a way to query it. And I don't know if you've run into a handwritten document.
I have run into handwritten documents, and it depends on what's capturing the handwriting. Okay, if you're talking about a handwritten document, which is essentially a PDF or a picture, then it needs to be OCR'd in order to be able to utilize it fully. But a lot of the information capture platforms that you find today on tablet computers and so on are actually capturing your representation of your handwriting, but they are also capturing the text behind that, as it were, and that is much easier to deal with. Yeah, and actually someone here is saying, we've done handwritten documents in SmartLogic before. You need a good OCR, as we said, to turn it into a PDF, but then MarkLogic adjusts it and indexes it for immediate use. So thank you very much, Harry Bakken, for providing that testament from the audience that what we're saying is actually true.
Thanks, Ann and David. We had another audience question related to data sources, and this individual is asking if we include any journal content in the platform, and is this the sort of thing that the customer would need to provide or that we would provide?
We don't provide the content. The content is typically provided by the client. We're providing the platform. The different organizations want to use different data sources. Some of them are fairly common across the industry, but many of them are not. Another thing, there's the ability, the semantic capabilities of SmartLogic Semaphore allow you to leverage linked open vocabularies in order to leverage linked open data. Different organizations want to use different sources for that as well.
And this is David. As an organization who's going to use the platform, that's going to use the MarkLogic SmartLogic platform, you would actually have to, if we're talking about medical journals or other industry journals, you would have to have a subscription, right, as an organization to be able to access that data. So, but once you, unless it's public domain, or you have access to a database of multiple journals. So any of those things would fly, and once that's done, the database can quickly absorb it, leverage it, and look across the various sources that you bring in.
Thanks, David and Ann. We have another audience question, and this one deals with technical resources, and this individual asks, what type of technical resources are required to support the integrated platform?
So this is David. We provide a host in the MarkLogic platform to provide a range of application development tools, so that application developers who are familiar with any of the standard tools out there, JSON, XML, REST APIs, will have no problem at all being able to build an application on MarkLogic or to be able to leverage some development on it. The semantic support requires RDF knowledge, so Sparkle is a query engine to look across RDF triples, but one can use any kind of search engine, whether it's SQL, or other against the MarkLogic platform. And then, most database administrators are very familiar with the type of database we have. So it's just a requirement to understand the architecture that we use and then get up and get going.
Well, I think, and from the semantic side, there is a requirement for information science. We know that models are not static. An organization's vocabulary changes, the world changes, research changes, and so on and so forth. So information science and information scientists are necessary for the ongoing care and feeding of the model. But one of the good things about life sciences is that they probably have a larger proportion of information scientists in their librarians and taxonomists than in any other industry. So those folks are already there.
That's right. Now, one thing that I'd like, because this question brings up a great point. If you look at, because most organizations have relational databases, they have got database administrators, they've got developers, but what's the beauty of the MarkLogic platform is that as a database, we have been able to show really a huge reduction in the amount of time to development and the amount of cost that's given. Most of that cost actually comes from developer time or database administrator time. We've actually been able to show like a 5-to-1 ratio of 20 to 25% of the time to development that traditionally has occurred with a relational approach. So what that does is not only frees up the time of those folks, the technical folks, but it also allows them to focus on more important things, right? Not moving data around, as I described, doing various ETL work and mapping and moving data from one database to another one with a new schema so they can answer new questions, but rather start to focus on the real work that we as organizations want to do, which is understand and learn from the data and start to ask new questions and build new applications on it. And that's the way that you really allow the organization to get competitive and get ahead of the competition in today's environment, to learn from your data, to move forward, and to build new applications that allow you to explore new territory across each of these use cases, both in productivity, new development, greater understanding, faster time to action. And as opposed to the traditional database approach where you're thinking about the questions almost in a rearview mirror and saying, these are the questions I want to ask, so I'll build a database, and then I'll go ask the question, and that may be a year later or maybe longer. So it really allows one to move forward and learn and become a knowledge, kind of a knowledge-creating organization as opposed to constantly thinking about what kind of database do I need, what kind of questions do I need to ask, and it turns out in the rearview mirror. So it's a great question. And it really speaks to a key piece around competitiveness in today's environment.
Thanks, David, man. Next question, and I think this one may be more for you. It's on semantic models. This individual asks, how much effort is required to curate and maintain semantic models after the initial deployment?
Well, it depends to some degree on the size of the model. One of the components of SmartLogic Semaphore's secret sauce is the fact that you actually don't need to have a PhD in linguistics in order to use the tool. It's actually very, very accessible to end users. And the workflow and governance is set up in such a way that you can actually have experts building out the concepts and the relationships in the models, and then have them reviewed by people who are actual information scientists before committing them to the master. So it's a good way to actually get the subject matter experts involved in the modeling of the domain, because that's where their domain expertise really shines. In most organizations, they have maybe a person and a half who is responsible for the care, feeding, and upkeep of a model. Making changes, making enhancements to it, and so on and so forth. In some organizations, it's less than that.
Thanks, Ann. And Nick, I want to thank Harry Bakken. I see he's put a note forward to mention when we were talking about developers, etc. The data scientists can access data in the system with a Hadoop integration. So if you've got Hadoop, that's fine. MarkLogic really and SmartLogic in the combination platform really take you to a new place. And so there's no need to remodel the data. If you want to use next generation data analytics, one can just go ahead and start to leverage the capabilities of the platform with your Hadoop, and it's an integration that already exists and is in place.
Thank you. Harry, we will pay you after the session. This has been terrific.
Thanks. We do have another question here from the audience. This person says, it seems like I hear about a new NoSQL vendor almost every month. Can you tell me how MarkLogic differs from the other NoSQL vendors out there and why you think that matters for life sciences customers?
Yeah, so this is David, and thanks for whoever asked that question. So it is true that there are a host of new NoSQL databases and new database companies appearing on the market literally almost seemingly every week. I mean, I think 4 or 5 years ago there were maybe just a handful, and now there's 30 or 40 or 50 in the market. I think one thing that speaks to is the fact that there is a transition that's occurring in the market for the database, right? We're still at about 94% of the market being in relational databases. That has been the case since the mid-'80s. And now we're going through this generational shift where people are beginning to realize the relational database is really built for the questions of the '70s and not for today. And so we're beginning to see what we often see in these technological shifts that occur in our culture and the human race, adoption of the wheel, that those adoptions occur very quickly, like the fall of the Berlin Wall occurred and other examples. So we're starting to see this dramatic interest and shift from relational to non-relational. What distinguishes MarkLogic? There are a number of points, some of which I brought up. We started 14 years ago. And we started not only 14 years ago and having more experience than anybody else when there was no one else doing this, but we did it in a way that we integrate search, query, and application development services all in one place. And that's critical because with the other NoSQL companies, you need to bolt on various solutions in order to look at get access geospatial data or do RDF triples or be able to add search. You need to add a search engine. All those integrations create a lot of problems. And so our original founder had this question is, how come I can go on the internet and find anything and I go to work and I can't find anything because it's all in relational databases? And he wanted to solve that problem. So that integrated search capability is critical. And so the ability to index all the data as it comes in, store it natively regardless of form, and to be able to query across it endlessly is critical. But lastly, that 14 years has led to another key differentiating feature, which from the beginning, we wanted to be enterprise grade. We wanted this to be a solution for businesses to run their business on. And in order to do that, you have to meet various enterprise criteria, such as the ACID requirements for transactions, the kind of reliability and security to handle things like clinical information. We're the only NoSQL database that is enterprise grade, that has ACID transaction capability. We're the only NoSQL database that can handle the massive scale we can. And we're the only NoSQL database that has the privacy and security, such as common criteria certification, that we've had for quite some time. In fact, very few relational databases even have common criteria certification. So we have all of the features that relational databases took 14 years to get to in the mid-'80s when they became a replacement for the mainframe. And so we've already been there for many years. So there's a number of different features. It's a great question. Our built-in search, our ability to take any kind of data all in one place, the ability to have this Ask Anything universal index upon ingestion, and most importantly, enterprise-ready and application services that are built in server-side so you can build your applications right there and then using almost any contemporary language that developers are used to. So quite a number of differentiating features. And we're by far and away the leading market share of the NoSQL and growing very quickly in our capabilities as a result.
Thanks, David. And we have one more audience question for today. This one asks about BI partners in visualization. And this individual asks, what BI partners work with this integrated platform to provide visualization?
All of them?
All of them.
Anybody with an ODBC connector?
That's right. All of them. Yeah, no, we've actually, we've worked with a couple of folks very closely on individual products to get a very deep integration, but we can basically use any visualization tool as long as they have an ODBC connector, which they all do. So I think Ann's spot on.
Great. Well, that concludes the questions from the audience. Dr. Nates and Ann, thanks again for walking us through this discussion about the MarkLogic, SmartLogic Semaphore integrated platform. And as a reminder to all the folks in the audience out there, please do feel free to reach out if you think of any other questions or just want to learn more about the integrated platform. And thank you to everyone for joining us today, and thanks to BioIT World for their help as well. Hope you all have a good rest of your afternoon. Bye.